Good. All right, good morning, everyone. Thank you for all coming here with us today. We invited you here to talk about a few things. I'm going to set the agenda briefly and just talk to you about what we're going to go about. Again, we're here to talk about DO 2015. DO 2015 is an exploratory process. It's an exploratory committee for process to determine what Philadelphians want to see next year in 2015 mayoral election. So we have some specific goals that we're looking for DO 2015. And one of those hard goals is to increase voter engagement by 15% next year. And we could talk about what some of those numbers mean, but that's the core of what we wanted to talk about today. Again, this is an exploratory committee to find out what it is that Philadelphians want, what they want important to them. We really want to find out why they're not engaged, why they haven't been, what it would take to get them engaged, and what they want to see from a pool of candidates as they run, as the mayoral election kicks off for next year. And we thought this would be a different way than what we've always seen. It's certainly been a different way than what I've always seen. And that's usually candidates come out, not that there's a wrong way, but we always see candidates that come out and they say, you know, I'm running for office and this is my platform and this is why. And we really wanted to do it in reverse order. We wanted to go out and find out why people want to run, what they want to see from their elected officials, so that those lines of accountability can be enhanced, so they can be laid out, so we can have those conversations with people now. So that's the process that we came about, and that's what we wanted to talk to you about here today. We've got a committee of some people that you may not have heard of before, and I think that's a good point because it's a different approach to it. And we like the people that we're going to be working with on this campaign, on this committee, and we're inviting new people to join us and to extend the word and pass the message. And we really think there's an opportunity to have a conversation, and we feel like we put a good team together to frame the conversation for what it is that we want to do. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Doug Oliver to talk some more about it. Actually, there's one other thing I wanted to do is introduce some of the campaign members. I'm Mustafa Rashid. I should have done that first. I'm the campaign chairman of DO 2015. Denelsi Medrano is here. She's one of the committee members of DO 2015. Perry Higgins is also here. She's one of the members of 2015. And there are a couple people that are on here today, but their information is in the bio packet that we will give to you before you leave today. And with that, I'd like to turn it over to Mr. Doug Oliver to talk to us some more about what we're doing with this committee.
Thank you, Mustafa. Much appreciated. Thank you for everybody who took time out of your schedule this morning to be here. This is a very exciting time for me personally, but also for the city of Philadelphia. Every 4 years, we get an opportunity to reevaluate where we are as a city, where we've been, how things have progressed, and where we're going. Because of the rules, oftentimes it's every 8 years that we truly get an opportunity to do it. It's no surprise to anyone that Mayor Nutter's 8-year term is concluding. And when these open seats arise, we really have an opportunity to have a conversation. There's lots of folks who are interested in leading the city of Philadelphia, lots of ideas kicked around. But more than anything, it gives us an opportunity as a city to redefine what we want. Today, we're here to talk about the launch of the DO 2015 Exploratory Committee. The purpose of the Exploratory Committee is twofold, and I'll explain later during the Q&A how we got to this point. But number one, first and foremost, it is to re-engage the Philadelphia voter and the selection of the leaders of our city. Not just the mayor, but the leaders of our city from top to bottom. The second part is to, based on the level of engagement that we find, to determine if there's an environment that would be supportive of a mayoral candidacy for me. But we've drawn the conclusion that we won't have one without the other. We won't make a decision to jump in a race and tell people what our vision is for the city without having had a conversation with the city. We think that makes our ideas stronger and also gives us a better read on our chances of success. We've drawn the conclusion that if there is not better voter engagement, then it's very difficult to win in a city like Philadelphia. And I've got a couple slides that I'd like to go through. I promise I won't take more than a minute or two on all of them total. So the establishment, we are here to announce the establishment of the DO 2015 Exploratory Committee. Our leadership team, as Mustafa referenced, very, very dynamic. Mustafa is our chairman. Deborah White is our treasurer. Those are the two positions that are required by the state to be filled in the establishment of a committee. We've done that. We've also got Denelsi Medrano is handling our digital strategy. Ms. Perry Higgins, who's our policy advisor. Barry O'Sullivan, who's communication strategy. And Dwayne Granum, who is serving as our legal advisor. But what you'll notice about this group of people, regardless of all the Harvard law degrees and MBAs and all of those things that are very exciting and speak to their bona fides, you're talking about energetic, dynamic Philadelphians who are excited about what this city can be. And I'm happy that they've taken the risk, quite frankly, to join this effort and to see exactly how far we can take this. The second thing we're here to talk about is the launch of DO2015.com. I described DO2015.com. The website itself is the boat that we're all floating on as we seek to get the city engaged. As you can imagine, with a city of 1.6 million people, it's very tough to get in front of every single person if you have to knock on every single door. So what we're going to try and do is use technology to connect our efforts to the city of Philadelphia to hear their ideas. It is our primary fundraising mechanism. It is our primary conversation starter. We will be very active through all of our social media channels and trying to meet people where they are. And we realize that that is on their phones. A traditional exploratory process is where a candidate comes up, they've got 2 or 3 rainmakers stand behind them and say, here's my plan for the city, and here's, quite frankly, the people that I'm accountable to. What we'd like to do is say, here's my committee, and these 1.6 million people are the people that I'm accountable to. So when we talk about the Do 2015 campaign, we are talking about a true exploratory process, and the city will give us its answer. A few months from now, we'll look at the success. We'll look at how much money was raised. We'll look at how many unique visits we have. We'll look at the number of likes and followers and tweets and how engaged Philadelphia was in defining what it wants to be and how engaged it's willing to be in the 2015 mayor's race. And we'll make a decision. If the city chooses not to withdraw, we're betting it's been engaged because it hasn't been asked to be engaged. We're betting that this is not an apathetic city. We're betting that it's not a lethargic city. We're betting that this city is excited about what it can become. And I'll quickly run through the slides and talk to you about sort of what led us to that conclusion. I will then close with sort of a vision for what we're going to do moving forward. There's a couple curveballs that we'll address, and then we'll open it up to Q&A. So, get to it. This number says it all. The last mayor's race, and I'm talking about the 2011 mayor's race, and we know there wasn't a highly contested race, but the numbers still speak for themselves. 18% of registered voters in Philadelphia came to cast their vote for mayor. That includes all candidates, 18%. There are more than 1 million registered voters in Philadelphia, and I know that we haven't scrubbed those records, and it might be significantly less, maybe not significantly less, but less, maybe 100,000, 200,000 less. But the point remains the same. There's 1 million registered voters in the city of Philadelphia, and only 18% came out to choose who the leader of our city is. It's very difficult to win in an environment. When I say win, I mean a campaign to become mayor. It's very difficult to win as a city, quite frankly, when only 18% of voters come out. We have to make our voice heard. We have to reestablish lines of accountability between our elected officials and between the voters of the city. Because if only 18% are voting, the lines of accountability are still there. It's just not to the majority of the city. This is just the flip side of that. 835,000 registered voters in the city of Philadelphia remain silent. That is the definition of a silent majority. Imagine the things that we can do as a city if 835,000 people said, we've chosen you. And if you don't do things our way, we can unchoose you. There is power in numbers, and this is one of the most powerful numbers that we saw, because we're not talking about it in terms of percentages. These are real numbers. This is how many registered voters did not vote in the last mayor's election. And when we talk about other citywide elections like DA, the numbers go even lower. And even in the best years, they don't really get above 24, 25%. We have got to do better if we want something different and something better for our city. 50,000. This is the number of new Philadelphians that have moved into the city in the last 10 years. 50,000 new Philadelphians, but what's more important about this number is who they are. They are the very, very mobile, very coveted millennial. We talk about them like it's National Geographic. There she is, the millennial in his natural environment. We're talking about 50,000 new Philadelphians who really don't have a sense of the challenges that the city's had for years. They just have a sense of excitement about what the city can hold. These are people who've chosen Philadelphia for a reason. This is our opportunity. Looking at us, 50,000 people, the biggest opportunity for our city. But they also represent the biggest risk for our city. If we do not create a city that has jobs for college students, when they graduate, they will leave. And even those who choose to stay, if we don't provide a system where they can educate their children here, we've only got another 4 or 5 years before they will leave. And so as exciting as having 50,000 millennials is, it's a short-term thing unless we make it a long-term thing. We have to engage them. We have to have policies and decisions that understand that our city gets younger as it gets older. 50,000 millennials. Number of college students just from the largest 7 colleges and universities in Philadelphia, the ones that you probably think of when you think of the big colleges and universities here. This includes both undergraduate and graduate students. If you just looked at undergraduate, you're probably looking at about 85,000 from those same 7 schools. And if you're looking at those that are 18 years or older, it's probably 90% of that number. We're talking about probably 65,000 to 75,000 people who are of age, who can vote, who may not be registered to vote in Philadelphia. If you're a college student in this city, you can use your on or off-campus college address and register to vote. If you like this city and you chose it for a reason, you chose it for your school, obviously, and the majors that it offered, but you chose it probably also because it had great restaurants. It had great nightlife. It had sports teams and any other nice walkable parks, place to ride your bike. There's lots of reasons why people choose Philadelphia. And so what I would say to college students, and what we will say through the DO 2015 initiative, is that even while you're a student, you're a citizen of Philadelphia and you can get engaged. I would argue that there's few people who should be as interested in who the next mayor of Philadelphia is as college students. If you want those jobs there when you're done, then get involved in this race. We have to start signaling to the future of this city that we're willing to merge the experience of our past with the promise of our future. 118,000. That's pretty much all I wanted to talk about as far as the slideshow is concerned, but these are the things that led us to believe that there was a tremendous opportunity in the 2015 mayor's race. But before we could get to the point where we're talking about policies and the vision for the city, the fundamental step was first to get people involved, to get them engaged and to believe that we have this opportunity to do something big. And if we thought that it wasn't possible, we wouldn't have even gone down this path. We know it's possible. We believe it's possible. And we're willing to bank all of our time and energy and effort into testing the theory. And so for these reasons, we're very pleased today to announce the launch of the DO 2015 website. It is now live, and we encourage as many people as possible to get on there, be a part of the conversation, and do something special in 2015, reclaiming our city. Last thing I wanted to do before I open it up to Q&A is to address a bit of a twist in this process. I'm not a widely recognized name outside of perhaps small circles in City Hall. But in those circles, there's been conversation about the fact that I was contemplating throwing my hat in the ring for the 2015 mayor's race. And for the last 2 years, I've had last year or so, I've had lots of conversations with folks in the Republican Party and in the Democratic Party, with Democrats to help me decide what I wanted to do. And I wanted to kind of give a sense of what led to where we are here today. If this DO 2015 campaign is successful, we envision, and it does evolve into an official candidacy, we envision that it would be as a Democrat. And I want to at least address how that decision came to be. Let me start here. The typical party affiliation are really two very broad brushes that don't really account for the nuance that is most Philadelphians. It is like shopping in a store that only sells extra large or extra small. That's going to be a perfect fit for somebody, for some people. But for most people, you're either going to feel like what you got was too big or too tight. And I kind of feel like that is the case with the two-party structure. For that reason, back in 2012, after having served some time in Mayor Nutter's office and confronting the challenges that are still facing the city, I was curious. I was curious if there weren't things on the Republican side, typically considered Republican platform positions, that might serve the city of Philadelphia well. And they're simple things like the relationship with Harrisburg, a Republican-controlled Harrisburg. The relationships between Philadelphia and Harrisburg have often been tense. I wondered if that could not be overcome. When we look at fiscal conservatism, I wondered, could not the city benefit from that? When we talk about being pro-business and creating an environment for business, I wondered if there wasn't some truth to that. I mean, consider Philadelphia with 10% unemployment means that there's about 160,000 people at any given time that don't have jobs. Let's assume 25,000 people work in government. You could triple the size of government and only have 75,000 jobs. If we're going to get the jobs that lead to sustainable lives and a strong tax base, we've got to bring business to Philadelphia. Everything we do has to be with an eye toward bringing businesses. The jobs come with business. And so when we talk about being pro-business friendly, we're not talking about the loopholes that people like to talk about. We're talking about small business. We're talking about entrepreneurialism, and we're talking about big business with benefits and wages and all of those things. And so I wondered personally if there wasn't potentially some solutions for the city of Philadelphia. And I made a very personal decision to switch my party registration to Republican to make those conversations easier to have. It was a very personal decision, and it was part of the way I approach problems, to include as many voices as possible, particularly those that are represented. Better understand, I think you draw better conclusions when you are more inclusive. So those conversations occurred. And they occurred before there was any conversation about the potential of running for mayor. But then the conversation shifted somewhere along the line, and I'm not sure, but then it became a question of, do you throw your hat in the ring? Now it's no longer a personal conversation of how Doug Oliver approaches his problem solving. It became, how do you present your ideas in a way that the city of Philadelphia understands you, can accept it, can ask questions about it, and can be engaged with the ideas. And that's a whole different equation. And so it should be no surprise to most that you do contemplate that there's an 8-to-1 voter registration advantage with Democrats. It's true. And we looked at that. And we looked and thought ultimately we made the decision that we did not want to force people to contemplate or reconsider their party position to understand what our policy positions would be. We believe that the policies that we come up will work for both Democrats and Republicans, independents and libertarians, and Green Party and everyone else, because they will be Philadelphia focused. So as long as you're in Philadelphia, we think it will speak to you. But ultimately, we made the decision that we did not want to force people to choose between their party and our ideas. And for that reason, we anticipate that if we can engage Philadelphia in the way that we think we can, that the next step would be to evolve into an official candidacy as a Democrat. And that's a little bit different, I think, than what some folks were expecting, but I wanted to at least address that so that folks understood the reason why. So that's what we're here to announce today. I want to make sure that I give an opportunity for folks in the media to ask questions, and I'll do my best to answer. Mike?
Given that you would run as a Democrat, it changes your time frame, obviously. So when would you anticipate making a decision whether to?
Well, whether you ran as a Republican or as a Democrat, you still have the deadline of, I think, March 10th, where you have to file.
But to be competitive in what's already a competitive Democratic field, some say you got to get out real early, particularly if you have low name recognition.
Yeah.
So,
well, again, part of the exploratory process, our decision to jump in a race or not will be driven by the amount of success that we have with getting folks excited about this. And so we'll continue to look at our website. We'll look at the number of unique visits. We'll look at the amount of money we're able to raise. We'll continue to have conversations through the traditional process with unions, and we'll talk with business community. We'll talk with church. Is to wake people up and get them asking the same questions of everyone. We're going to invite them to ask of us, and then from there we'll decide whether it makes sense. So I envision it'll be a couple of months at least.
Doug, having worked for Mayor Nutter in the past during his first term, what sense are you getting in terms of support from him?
Well, I've had countless conversations, again, on both the Republican and Democratic side. I can tell you that every conversation has been polite. I think when folks were anticipating that I'd run as a Republican, some thought it was a fool's errand, a quixotic endeavor, any number of different things. I never got the sense that people thought that it was a bad idea to run. There was just a debate as to how to approach it. And so I felt very supportive. I felt a lot of support coming from a lot of quarters. If I tell you I spoke to 75 to 100 people in the course of a year, there'd be names that you'd recognize. And I don't think that these were political ideologues type folks. They just want Philadelphia to be the best it can be. And what I heard from them is, Doug, do it. It's a scary thing. It's a scary thing to kind of put yourself out there. But my conversations with the mayor, my conversations with former candidates, my conversations with Republican leadership and countless others have led me to believe that if you step out there, the city will tell you what it thinks. And rather than be afraid of them saying no, I'll take the risk of them saying no and the risk of saying yeses. I think it was Teddy Roosevelt. It's always dangerous to start trying to quote people and you don't know the quote 100%. But I think it was Teddy Roosevelt who said something to the effect of, may you never be one of those timid souls who know neither victory nor defeat. I think victory awaits. I think the city wants, and when I'm talking about victory, I'm not talking about Doug Oliver victory. I'm talking about victory for the city of Philadelphia. I'm talking about for people who want more and expect more. I think they're going to get engaged. And if they get engaged, then I'm engaged with them. And at that point, we are 1 million voters strong.
Doug, understand what you're looking for from the exploratory committee, sort of feedback you're looking for. I'd like to hear a little bit more about what you would do if you were to actually be elected there. What would your priorities be? What would your policies be? What do you have in mind?
Mm-hmm. Well, again, I don't want to prejudge the exploratory process because part of the process is designed to hear just off in issues that need to be addressed. But before we have all of those things, we have kids that aren't being educated. And I personally don't care where the solutions come from, just so long that we have all hands on deck to find what those solutions are. So education is obviously going to be one area that we spend a lot of our time. If there's a second, it is job creation, bringing businesses to Philadelphia. We've done a good job as a city of attracting millennials, but there has to be jobs to support their lives here. And so since we're doing a better job than most cities at attracting them, I think there's a lot of attention being paid to Philadelphia, the decisions that we make, and how friendly environment this is for businesses. I would focus on making sure that we did everything we could to encourage business to come here. And quite frankly, looking at energy as an opportunity to do that is something that I think deserves a lot of consideration. And these aren't individual problems, right? These things there's an interrelationship between our schools and our businesses. And finding what those links are and starting to build solutions is something that I seek to do. I don't have policies to present at this point, but again, as this campaign, this exploratory campaign continues to evolve, we'll have more to say. And again, I have a dynamic team of folks to help me get there.
Doug, do you plan to take a leave of absence or resign your position?
I will follow the law on this. The law says that when you file your paperwork to become a candidate and you're a public employee, you must resign. And I will do that at the point that I become an official candidate.
You know, I hear someone wants to be mayor who says, I don't know what I stand for. I don't know what party I belong in. I'm going to turn to voters and ask them what they want. Are you a leader or a follower? Do you stand for anything?
Well, I will start with wondering first who you just heard talk, because that wasn't me. I am a leader. There's no question about that. My exploration into the Republican Party was not about confusion. It was about learning. It was about being inclusive with the conversations and making sure that I contemplated other people's points of view. And I make no apologies for that. And I think that the best leadership decisions come from people who have that philosophy. So I'll start there. What was the next criticism?
Not a criticism, the question.
Okay, what was the second
I
question?
don't hear anyone. I don't hear you standing for anything. What do you stand for?
Again, right now, our first and foremost goal is to get folks engaged. We believe that when we stand our voice, the best decisions will be made. I do have ideas for ways to approach the energy hub that's so frequently talked about. I do have ideas for how to address the education.
What is that? Are you in favor of a sale of PGW?
I think you're pushing for answers that you're not going to get right now. We are focused right now on the DO2015 voter engagement effort. I have a wonderful team of people who will help me put together the policies that we will then present. But as I said, they will not be Democrat policies or Republican policies. They will be Philadelphia-focused policies. And I'm just not at a point right now where I'm prepared to discuss those things yet. But obviously, I would question if anybody's ready to have that conversation now if they haven't talked to the city of Philadelphia and invited them to participate in the conversation.
Where is your registration currently sit?
I have filed the paperwork to switch my party registration to Democrat.
So you have been registered Republican?
Yeah, I switched my party
And
registration in
And would
2012.
potentially run as Republican?
No, when I switched my party registration, that was a personal decision. There was no contemplation of running for office at that time. 2012, I can't tell you the exact month.
In 2012, you registered as Republican.
I changed my registration in 2012.
And just more recently, you reverted back
Correct.
to Democrat.
Mhm.
Have you ever registered as an independent?
No, I have not.
And can you speak to your fundraising or financial standing?
Yeah, well, I mean, we're just announcing today. So a lot of the work that has been done to this point has been behind the scenes. Make no mistake, we understand what an uphill climb this is going to be. But this is a crowdfunding endeavor. We do believe that This is the right way to start, but we don't envision that crowdfunding by itself is going to be sufficient. At some point, this alternative path that we're on is going to have to merge with the traditional path. But here's what I'll say about what I've learned as I've explored the idea, is that there's three types of givers for these sorts of endeavors. There are those who give because they believe what you believe. There are those who give because you are simply in their party. They don't really care what you believe. And then the rest of the givers are access givers. People who give because they want to, have access to you and those sorts of things. I think those first two groups represent traditionally the smallest amount of money that candidates raise. I think that should be a much larger amount of money. And so when we talk about, and the reason why is because the lines of accountability can be to those individuals who believe what you believe. I think currently the overwhelming amount of money that people get come from people who really don't care one way or another. They're going to throw money at one candidate, two candidates, three candidates. And at some point, as we look at this campaign, we want to first establish the lines of accountability in Philadelphia. And I will tell you that I would rather have $50,000 in the bank because 25,000 people chose to give me $2 than to have $50,000 in the bank because 5 PACs gave me $10,000.
Can you say how much you have in the bank?
I don't have anything in the bank at this point. And some might say, well, that's the reason why you shouldn't run. But what I will say is that would be the case for anybody who's not already in a system that seeks to run for mayor. And it is, quite frankly, one of the things that makes it scary. Is one of the things that prevents people from jumping in. And so again, from our perspective, we're going to take our case to the city of Philadelphia, and we're going to ask them to fund this. We're going to ask them to show that they're engaged by small contributions. So what DO2015 seeks to do is to ask for small contributions in the amount of $15. We're going to ask people for access to their network in small groups of 15 people. And we're going to continue to push that, and we'll see what we get. If somebody were to raise $8 million, I guess 7 of it would be spent on broadcast media in the final month of the campaign. That's the traditional process. And it's been for years and years and years. But technology presents different opportunities for us. And there's ways to get to people that don't require the traditional way. I don't think it should take $8 million to run for mayor. I don't think that it should take $5 million to run for mayor. Not if you're talking to people. I'll tell you a quick story. I talked to a former mayoral candidate about what his experience was when he ran and sort of his sense of whether I should or shouldn't and what the pros and cons would be. And one of the most disheartening things he said was, don't think you're going to be out talking to the people. He said, you're going to be sitting in a dark room by yourself making fundraising calls again and again and again. And it struck me because it was echoed not just by him, but by almost everyone who's ever run for public office. So the question was, Doug, are you comfortable with sitting in the dark room begging people for money and not having conversations with people? And the answer to that is no, I'm not comfortable doing it. Am I willing? Yeah, I'll do all of those things. I'll do whatever is necessary. But we can't sit here and act like not having a conversation with people isn't part of the problem. That we elect people who have spent no time in neighborhoods asking people the question because they felt like their obligation was to raise the money. That's part of the problem. So if I don't get the money, I don't get the money. We'll bow gracefully if we don't think we have enough money to do what we need to do in a campaign. But we're not willing to make that call beforehand. We're not going to prejudge that out. Questions? All right, well, thank you again for coming out. Much appreciated. Thanks, man. Don't worry about it, I get it. No problem, I appreciate it. Anytime you want to come back and ask it, over and over. Hey, how you doing?
Hi, I'm Brittany Miller. Great.